in a flying bicycle.
We'll talk about special delivery. Anyway, joining right now is U.S. Congressman Steve Israel, Democrat of New York, and author of the great novel, and I mean great novel, The Global War on Mars. And also with us, Politico's Ken Vogel, author of Big Money. I want to go to Congressman Israel. First of all, it doesn't scare me one bit that this guy comes in on that flying lawnmower of his. So what? And do you think he should be charged at all? It looks like they let him off on his own recognizance. That's the sign to me they're not going to throw the book at this guy. What do you think should happen?
Well, Chris, thanks for having me on. Look, I was in my office, and when I heard that we had been invaded by something called a gyrocopter, I thought it was an episode of the Jetsons. I didn't even know what a gyrocopter was. The fact of the matter is that, look, he broke the law. There are other ways to deliver a message. But what concerns me is that everybody's so focused on how he delivered the message, they're not focused on what his message is. And that is when the American people feel so marginalized, so minimized by the big money that is flooding into American politics, they're going to resort to stunts like this. I don't endorse the stunt, but I understand this guy's need to make the case.
You know why I don't talk much about money on television? I want to get to Ken on this because it's a journalism problem. Most people don't give money to politicians. They vote. They consider that their sacred responsibility and right, and they get out there and vote, and they read the paper. People that watch this kind of program do. They read the newspaper. They keep up. They know something of importance to them about how they vote, so that's how they're citizens. There's a very small percentage of people that think, well, I want to go beyond it and kick some money in. Maybe it's $500, maybe it's $50, maybe it's $5, maybe it's millions of dollars. But they don't really know that percentage of people. Ken, I want to get to you on this. I think it's the reason why it's very hard to talk on television about money, period. Economics doesn't sell. Numbers don't sell on television, especially. That's more for print. But it's so alien to most people. All they know about it is they see a guy like Sheldon Adelson, some guy, a fat cat, or the Koch brothers, and they see these politicians kissing their butts or rings or toes or whatever else, and they say, that is sickening to me because that guy, because he's rich, has a bigger say than I do by the millions. Your thoughts? But nobody, it's like I think that guy had a point, Doug, the other day. The guy was flying that gyrocopter. He said, nobody talks about it. They've given up the fight.
Well, when they're asked about it, Chris, they do say, and polls do show,
right, when asked about it.
Right, that they're disturbed by this flood of money into politics. So the problem for folks who have been working to reduce the role of money in politics and the flow of money into politics is translating that sentiment into actual voting activity, because it's just not a top voting issue for most people. And we've seen efforts to make it a top voting issue, but it seems like just more of a sort of rhetorical thing that when asked about it, they will say that they're opposed to it, but we seldom see it rising to be a top issue in elections. And that's why it's so difficult to actually generate the political momentum to get Congress or to get state legislatures to vote to change the laws to make it more difficult for money to flood into politics. Let's not forget, Chris, and Congressman Israel, these are folks who have been elected through this system that no matter how bad they think it is, it still worked okay for them on the last election day for them to be in the office. So it's very difficult for them to cast a vote to change a system that worked for them, even if they say they oppose it.
Let me go back to Congressman. I want to direct it more pointedly at you. As long as the Supreme Court out there saying you have an individual right to a gun, no, forget the militia reason for having a gun in the court, the thing we all grew up with. No, you can have a gun for any reason you want one. Number two, you can spend all the money you want in a campaign because you got it. And once the court ruled that way, people like Hillary Clinton and you and everybody else has to raise money goes, well, you can't blame me. We passed McCain-Feingold. We did our bit, and the courts overruled us.
Well, I'll tell you who you can blame. You can blame the Republican majority in Congress for not passing the Disclose Act. When that Supreme Court decision, which was an insidious and corrosive decision that is destroying democracy, but when that decision was made, the Supreme Court actually said, we expect that Congress will require that these contributions not be secret, that they be disclosed. House Democrats offered the Disclose Act that would require transparency, that would require that these secret donors tell people who they are, and it was Republicans who voted against, and they are keeping that bill bottled up. People have the right to know. Let me say one other thing on Ken's point. He's right. When you look at polls, campaign finance reform doesn't really rate that high. However, when you make the connection between people's paychecks being squeezed and the fact that the special interests are dictating policy and squeezing their paychecks, people understand that's true. They think that the deck is stacked, and then they want campaign finance reform.
So what's that? I didn't realize that. You mean the courts would not strike down a full disclosure requirement, Congressman? If people on the Hill got a 50-plus vote percentage in both houses, and you got the president to sign, I think he would sign it.
No question.
You think the courts would uphold it? They would uphold it. It's a full disclosure act.
Yeah, if you read the Citizens United decision, I think at least one justice based his support for Citizens United on the assumption that Congress would require disclosure, and that never happened.
You know,
Ken, I had a fight the other day. Ken, I had a fight the other day with another colleague of mine I respect, but the fact is there's a casualness with which the media does this. They'll put on an ad from some. They'll show a piece of an ad or the whole damn ad for free. Some Swift boat ad, and I'll say, who paid for that ad? Nobody thinks to put that on, even when they knew it. Well, they at least ought to say it's dark secret money, and it's the same people that produced that ad that produced the Swift boat ads against John Kerry, the same bad crowd of people. They're up to it again. No, the casualness with which people put free examples of advertising there drives me crazy. But I'm glad to see the congressman said that, because now everybody watching knows now you can write your congressperson, Democrat or liberal or whatever, and say, look, a Republican, say this: I want to know where the money's coming from when somebody gets elected. That's just give me that. Give me squat. Give me something. Maybe you can't stop because of this right-wing court, but I want to know who's paying for these stupid ads I got to watch election time. Last word from you, Ken.
Yeah, disclosure was just one of the miscalculations that was embedded in that Supreme Court decision, Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission in 2010. The congressman is right. There was the assumption that this money flowing into the process would be disclosed. It hasn't been, and in fact, people have taken advantage, groups have taken advantage of another part of the decision that allows corporations to use these non-disclosing, non-profit corporations to pump this money into the system. The other miscalculation was that this independent spending would be independent, that unlimited spending would not be done in coordination with the campaigns. We see with these super PACs, if they're not coordinated, they're pretty close.
I got an idea for Congress in the Capitol Police. Instead of charging this guy on the helicopter, the gyrocopter, why don't you give him community service? And his community service can be 1 hour. And this 1 hour should be spent addressing a joint session, a joint meeting of the Congress. He should walk in there and tell them why he did that. And they must all be there to watch it. That can be his community service, and we can all watch. If they put this guy in jail, what a bunch of clowns that would be to do that. Anyway, U.S. Congressman Steve Israel, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with your book, The Global War on Morris.